Hello, everybody. My name is Erica Austin. I'm so excited to have you joining us here live today because we are extremely excited to be joined today by Patricia McConnell. Tricia, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, I am excited to be here. Thank you for
I'm
doing this.
excited to have you here. Everyone who's joining in live, it looks like we've already got 40 to 45 people who are joining live. We want to know where you're joining from. So go ahead and put a comment. Let us know where you're joining in from today. And then this is a live Q&A. So if you've always wanted to ask Patricia McConnell a question, this is a great opportunity. We're going to be taking questions from the audience today. We also had some questions come in on our social media ahead of time. So we've got those saved and we're ready to share those with you all. We have got people joining from Oregon, Los Angeles, Central Texas. Welcome to everyone who is joining today. We're very excited. Canada, excellent. So let us know where you're joining from. And oh, it looks like, hi, Tricia, sending love from the mountains of
Hi, Karen London.
Karen,
Karen London co-authored this book with me, by the way.
Right. That's
Thrilled
right.
she's here.
That's good. We've got both authors of this book here, which is great. This is one of the books we're going to be talking about a lot today. We've got Florida, Utah, Pittsburgh, Massachusetts. Thank you guys all for coming today. Virginia, we're so excited to be here. I want to let you guys know on the front end, like I said, this is a live Q&A. So we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask questions. And we want to incentivize that a little bit. So if you are joining and you like audiobooks, just by asking a question in the chat today, you could win a free copy of Love Has No Age Limit on audiobook. So definitely be sure to be asking your questions today. And it looks like, yeah, we've got an international audience, Germany, Florida, Texas, California. So excited to see everyone today. So my first question for people in the audience actually is, do you follow us on social media? How did you hear about this event? Because we're always trying to get more people to come to these events. So let us know how you heard about this event, because that's where we'll really focus our efforts the next time that we are doing a live event like this. I also want to ask, did anyone see our post that we did just recently about National Adopt a Shelter Pet Day? We posted about it online. I did a little reel where I was telling people about two of our amazing books that are available for shelter pets. But I want to know if anybody even saw it, because we're going to be talking about these books today and how valuable they are for shelters and for rescues and for you to be able to give back to your community. So if you saw any of our posts, let us know. Or if you got the email from us that was talking about National Adopt a Shelter Pet Day, please let us know. And if you didn't, we want to know. We want to know that too. Lots of people who did see it pop up on Facebook got an email. Fantastic. An email notification. And it looks like purchased several books and got an email about the event. Wonderful. That's what we want to hear. Did not see anything about shelter pets. That's good to know, because that's something we are definitely going to be talking about today. So Tricia, I want to go ahead and just jump right in and talk about this incredible book, Love Has No Age Limit.
Yes.
And I want to ask you specifically a little bit about, and I'm glad that Karen is here. I wish I'd known I could have had her jump on too. That would have been so fantastic. But what I really want to know is, why did you write this book? Who is this book written for? Like, when you came up with the idea for this book with Karen London and you co-authored this book, who was your ideal audience? Who did you have in mind when you wrote this book?
You know, we wrote this book because so many books about sort of starting off and early training, they're all about puppies. And every dog trainer, every behaviorist, everybody's shelter, everybody knows that many, many dogs come into homes who are not 8 weeks old, they're not 10 weeks old. And there's a huge difference. They come with experience, they come with baggage, they learned all kinds of things that may be good things, they may be not good things. And I don't know about everybody out there, but Karen and I both, even given our experience, given what we do for a living, we get a new dog and we're like, holy crap. What did we do? What have we done? I literally, when I got Skip, who's 9 now, I've had him like 6 years, but he was 3.5. I literally read this book over again. And I helped write it. I mean, Karen and I wrote it together. And it's been so gratifying. This book, and my brain is so old and so overwhelmed. I am so sorry, but There was a shelter in Florida, I cannot remember their name, but they found when they gave this booklet out to adopters of dogs who were adolescents, who were 2 years old, who were 1 year old, who were 5 years old, it decreased behavior calls and returns by something like 40%. I mean, it was really significant. And it's been so gratifying to hear shelters all over the country. And just like you, me, somebody who got a new dog, again, it's so exciting. And it's like, what have I done? I've just introduced a new member into my family, and they didn't know what was happening, right? I've been thinking about this forever, but the dog doesn't know. And so we wrote this as a, I'm struggling with the words. Here was our goal. We wanted to be as thorough as possible, but also concise and readable. So that was our goal, is to find sort of the best compromise between those two things. If it was, super thorough, it would be 300 pages. So there's a lot of references and places to go if there's a problem. But I'm really proud of it. And also, one of the really fun things is we reached out to people online and said, send us a picture of one of your dogs that you got as an older dog. So every chapter starts with somebody's adorable dog. This is Gadget. And that was a really fun thing to do. Anyway, so Karen, jump in, but I am really proud of this book. I just have to be really honest. I'm very, very proud of this. And it was really fun to work with Karen besides. So
it's such an endorsement.
Story.
It's amazing to hear what you said. And I've heard that before as well. Like people who work at a shelter or work at a rescue, when this book goes home with adopters, the dogs come back less often. And that is like, you can't say anything better about this book. That's such a powerful thing. We actually shared something on our social media on our Instagram page the other day that was a quote from the book where it's talking about, like, you've spent a lot of time thinking about adopting your dog. Your dog had no idea that they were going home with someone new today. And so how do we help them with that? And exactly what you said about so many books that are for puppies, but what about the older dogs? I know that I've told you this before, Tricia, but when I adopted my Border Collie, this book was given to me by the Border Collie Rescue. It was Mid-Atlantic Border Collie Rescue, and they sent this book home with me. And I had a 5-hour drive home. He was in the back in a crate, and I'm reading through it like I'm a professional dog trainer, but I'm like, wait a minute, now what do I do? So I think it's just such an incredible and valuable resource.
Thank you.
We even have a comment coming in now that said, this book helped me a whole lot when adopting my adult dog who grew up in a shelter. That's exactly what we want to hear. That's fantastic. So I want to tell you guys, everyone who's tuning in, I mentioned this Adopt a Shelter Pet Day. This has our buy in bulk savings. So we're looking to ask people to help us with a mission. We've got a mission for you. We want you to buy these books in volume and donate them to your local shelters. Because like Tricia just said, being able to give these books to shelters, to rescues, and get them into the hands of adopters is going to be huge. It's going to make such a difference for so many dogs. We sent out this email last week, and it basically said, like, you can spend $100 and help 50 dogs, and we'll do free shipping. It's an incredible, incredible deal. So I want to tell you guys about it because, and again, I want to incentivize this. I also mentioned on our Instagram page, you may have seen it this morning on Facebook or Instagram, but we also shared this morning a little highlight reel. There's an opportunity if you wanted to win an autographed copy of The Other End of the Leash. It will be this copy that's right here in my hands. I found it this morning and thought, this is a great opportunity. If you want an autographed copy of Patricia McConnell's The Other End of the Leash, I'm about to tell you how. So what we want you to do is go to dogguys.com or go to patriciamcconnell.com and buy 10 copies or more of Love Has No Age Limit. 10 copies or more of Love Has No Age Limit enters you to win The Other End of the Leash, the autographed copy. So anyone who buys more than 10 copies of Love Has No Age Limit today or tomorrow, you'll be entered to win The Other End of the Leash signed by Patricia McConnell. So if you have questions about that, drop that in the comments for us. I want to make sure that everyone understands kind of the contest rules. We came up with this morning because, again, we're trying to incentivize a way for people to give this book to more people. We want this book in the hands of more adopters. Tricia, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just thank you. And I've been working a lot with just lately with my local shelter, Dane County Humane Society. I'm actually going to be there next week because they're getting 500 beagles to triage from the now infamous, as it well should be, Ridgeland Beagle Breeding Facility. And yeah, and I actually donated 300 of these to them. And I also, you know what they also said, they said, we give this out like all the time. So, so I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Anyway, so this is on sale too. So just in case you're thinking about shelters.
I'm glad you brought that up. So I have right here with me a whole stack of Patricia McConnell books that I want to talk about today, and we'll see how many books we get to. Because these resources, especially, you know, these littler booklets that are small and easy reads, again, they're such fantastic resources for shelters, for rescues, to be able to keep adoptable pets in homes. I think too, something that I wanted to mention about this book, I put the volume discount of books pricing up here. This book is normally $10.
Yeah.
The discounts currently, just one copy is only $5. So you can just go to dogwise.com and get one copy of this book for $5. But if you really look at these volume discount prices, 200 copies of this book, it's only $1.50 a piece. That, y'all, it's a steal. It's a steal. 10 copies or more, only $3 a piece. This book is worth more than $3 or $5 or $10. It's such an invaluable resource, and we want to make sure that people have access to that. I did want to share that we did get a comment coming in. Gracie, the Parrot Talks, bought 50 copies and donated to Oregon Humane, where I volunteer.
Oh, thank you. Oh, and Parrot Talks, I love that.
Thank you so much.
Parrot Talks, I love that. Anyway, Karen, that's great.
Karen, who is, like we said, the co-author of the book, I'm going to read this comment from her. It means so much every time I learn that a shelter is getting feedback about how this book helps people keep their dogs. Those early days, weeks, and months are so overwhelming. That is so true. You know, I've seen so much, especially online, about like the 3-3-3 rule, getting your dog 3 days to settle in, 3 weeks to settle in, 3 months to settle in before you even really see your dog. But what do you do in the meantime? And it can be so overwhelming and feel so isolating. So again, the more animals we're able to keep in homes, the better. Very excited to hear that. I've got a question that just came in. I'm going to read for you, Tricia. We really need more resources like books for dogs adopted after they're retired from commercial breeders and research. Do you think you might write about your experience with helping the beagles?
I will. Yeah, thank you for asking. I will certainly write probably a blog post about it, the other end of the leash.com. Yeah, I will definitely do that. But one of the things that I think is really important in this conversation, because I had a lot of questions on Facebook and Instagram when I was talking about this whole issue, and some of the people said, oh, I'm really worried that some of these groups who are getting dogs won't know how to won't know how hard it is to deal with some dogs who have come from such abusive situations. And what I wrote in my latest blog post is like, sadly, they see this all the time, right? Dane County Humane Society last year at the same time, they had 2 huge hoarding cases. They had dogs who were legal cases, so the dogs couldn't go anywhere, right, until the 1-2 years, whatever. So sadly, shelters are really used to this. So I will definitely write more about it. And I did the post. I spent a lot of time on my latest blog post, which is like, how do you help a dog heal from an abusive situation? So you might want to look at that. I mean, it's a blog post, so it's not a book, but hopefully that's really helpful, because we do know, partly because of the work of the ASPCA, they have this amazing behavioral rehab center in North Carolina that they've funded for, I think, over 10 years. They've done tons of research. And the things they know that really struck me that you guys might be interested in is, one, you can't necessarily predict. I found this fascinating. You can't necessarily predict how well a dog will do after, say, 3 months. So you get a dog who's shut down and really shy and just shut down, won't eat. That dog might end up doing better than the dog who comes in sort of pretty good, not bad, maybe a little cautious. It's really hard to predict how any individual dog is going to do. The most important factor, and this makes all the sense in the world to all of us who work with dogs, is having another dog. Just critically important. I saw that in my practice. I'm sure everybody out there who deals with these cases, whether in shelters or as a behaviorist or a trainer, we've just seen it over and over and over again, is a dog to model. You need a role model dog. I mean, I had a client, and I think I just read about another dog. It's not uncommon for dogs in this, from an abusive, neglected kind of situation, they don't want to walk through a doorway. Now, why is that? Is it because it's narrow and confining? I don't know, but they don't want to walk from one room to another. And if they see another dog do it, they're like, oh, okay, that's safe. Oh, it's safe to get closer to that human. Oh, it's safe to have them touch you. So that is probably the most important factor. If you're going to get a dog from an abusive situation, I would love to hear all of you guys out there say what your experience has been. But having another dog is hugely important. And then the other one is endless patience and great observations. Like I think one of the hardest things for people is they feel so sorry for these dogs. So they're like, I want to pet you. I want to hold you. I want to hug you. I want to reach out to you. And the dog's like, go away from me, right? So that kind of patience and being a really good skilled observer is, I think, really, really important. So.
I'm really glad that you mentioned the ASPCA's Behavioral Rehabilitation Center in North Carolina. I live 10 minutes from there. In fact,
I love it.
Yeah, our second adopted dog came from the BRC, and I know a lot of the incredible people who work there, and I get to volunteer there, and I get to hear their stories. And the dog that we adopted from the BRC in December has actually now been able to go back and be a helper dog for some of the dogs.
Oh, that's too cool for school. I did not know that. I love that.
It's really amazing. But what's so interesting to me, and it's funny to hear you say that, because I was like, I need to give this booklet a reread. Our dog that we recently adopted, I brought her with me on a dog training session. Last week, I've got a dog. He needs some more dog-dog interactions. And I brought her with me, and she was like, oh my gosh, the big wide world. It's so scary. And I had forgotten, because in her familiar environment at home, she's just such a normal dog. But then I take her somewhere else and she's like, the sky is falling. And I'm like, oh, that's right. I forgot. You came in as an extremely fearful dog. And that this booklet, this resource, The Cautious Canine, is such, again, quick and easy read, but really good tips that are available in there. I also wanted to mention, you said something about your blog. I think a blog is I like to call it successive approximation to reading. Like, some people aren't going to sit down and, read a whole, couple 100 pages, 200 pages of a book, but they'll read a blog post or they'll read a booklet. And that's why I really love these booklets, especially to send home with shelters. Again, buying them in bulk, sending them to shelters can be so incredibly valuable. Tisha said, enjoy the little booklets, share the info with your clients. And not just for shelters, like we're talking specifically about shelters, but even with clients, I can't get a client to sit down and read The Other End of the Leash or The Culture Clash or Don't Shoot the Dog. But if I can just get them to read like just a little tiny bit, that can really help our clients and people who own dogs as well. I did want to respond. Claire, you asked if we could share the link. I'm going to share the link in the chat to Love Has No Age Limit. But again, you can go to dogwise.com or go to patriciamcconnell.com. All of these books are going to be available there for you to buy. Let's see. I think we've got a few more questions. We've got what if the existing dog is skittish? Really great question. Do you want to address that, Tricia?
Yeah, well, I can see that go. I love other people to join in on this, but I can see that going either way. I can see having another dog there being very calming and soothing for the in-home resident dog who's a little bit skittish. So I could see that being really helpful to get another dog. I can also see, oh no, I'm skittish, you're skittish. And so, I'm learning from this other dog that yes, that is scary. So I would be really thoughtful if I had a skittish dog and I was going to get a dog from a really abusive situation. And I have, actually, if people, if they don't mind, there's a story from my life. So I had Willie, Border Collie. I wrote The Education of Will about him and me and trauma. And he came at, 9 weeks, like he was been traumatized by other dogs. He was like terrified by other dogs. Like, where did that come from? I have no idea. He was raised well. He was raised with lots of other dogs in the litter. So I worked on it really hard. I worked on the cautious canine. And he got so much better, but he was really awful at first. And so he got so we could walk down, a street and see another dog, and he'd look at me, right? And all was well. We could keep walking. I got Maggie, Border Collie from Idaho, who had lived 13, 14 months. She had not been out very much. She had lived with her mom and her litter mates on a Border Collie sheep operation in Idaho, and so she was very skittish. But what happened when you put them together is it was like they have a pack backup now, and they were both not as totally relaxed as I would like them to be, but they were better together. Then I got Skip, who was like, I love everybody. I'm a Labrador in a tuxedo. And Maggie just completely relaxed. It's like, oh, I got my bro here. Like, so it does make a big difference. And I think it might be hard to predict, frankly. I would love to hear what everybody out there thinks, because there's so much experience out there. So join in if you have some comment. I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, I again would appreciate some comments. We've got some really good questions that are coming in as well. And I've got another question talking about multiple dogs. And Trisha, I'd love to know, I meant to mention this before, Trisha and Karen, both of you, Karen, the co-author with this book, Feeling Outnumbered, which is How to Manage and Enjoy Your Multi-Dog Household. Again, small book, really good resource for clients, for shelter, people who are adopting, who are bringing home a new dog, maybe bringing home a second dog. Trisha, it sounds like you've just written the book on everything we've got questions about. But
well, with Karen, me and Karen just couldn't stop. She was so fun to work with, and she's so smart, and she's so good. And if you don't know her, she is the funniest person I know. And I love funny. And she's quick-witted, and I'm not. I'm like a classic writer. I'm like, I think of the cool thing to say in the shower that night.
Yeah.
Like right there. Right there.
Yeah.
So put that question back up.
All right, here's your question. Talking about multiple dogs. I see a lot of dogs probably come back into the shelter. Tisha, do you work in a shelter?
Yeah. There is some information about that in Love Has No Age Limit. But I think most important, because I've had to deal with this too. Maggie, when I brought Skip in, she was like, it was very big. I don't know. So I think what's incredibly important, first of all, for everything, is to become a really great observer. So you really can talk dog. You really can see that you notice when your dog turns its head an inch, right? You notice those things. You know what you're looking at, because your dog is communicating all the time. It's just usually non-verbally, right? So that's huge. And the other is, it's like bringing in any dog, is patience, patience, patience. So when I brought Skip in, I had gates up. And, Maggie didn't have to be inside. Maggie was great with him outside where they could run around in like a big, huge pasture. But inside, she was like, I don't know him and I'm not comfortable. So we had gates up so they could see each other. And then we just gradually sort of increase the exposure. So I think back to patience, is back to reading your dog and being really, really, really patient. And I think a lot of dogs They do not do well if they sort of instantly don't want to have them meet at the door. That's like the worst possible thing in my mind, or on two really tight leashes. When I'm introducing dogs to each other and they both have to be on leash, I'm always like, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Walk one dog this way, walk the other dog that way. One of the things I've done for years that seems to work really well is, if you don't quite know how the dogs are going to be, I'll just have them walk in parallel. I'm sure a lot of you guys do this. They walk in parallel, like 20 feet, 30 feet apart, and hopefully they're scent marking. And so you do that for 5 minutes or so. You're watching the dogs really carefully. And then you just switch sides so they can sniff each other. They can sniff each other's urine, right? And then you're watching the dogs really, really carefully. And if you see a little play bow, or you see a little grin and one of those wag from the shoulders back, then that's one thing, right? But if you see a dog go stiff and tense, it's like, I'm not going to let them meet each other on leash, especially just keep walking. What people tend to do is there are two dogs greeting and people stand around and they do what dogs do when they're about to attack, right? They go completely stiff, their eyes get huge, they shut their mouths and they stop breathing. And they're watching the two dogs. And the dogs are like, oh my God, what is wrong with those people? Something is really, really scary here, right? So just keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. Don't stand and stare at the dogs. That's my most important cue, sort of that very early first introduction. I would love to hear other people's thoughts on that.
I'm a very, very quick reader, so I'm going to tell you all right now that on page 45,
there we are,
of Feeling Outnumbered, on page 45 of Feeling Outnumbered, it actually is going to talk just specifically about how to introduce new dogs to each other. And then there's also in Love Has No Age Limit, Coming Home on the First Day, there's an entire section in here that is just about how to introduce to the human family members and then introductions to canine family members. So that's
on good, Erica.
16 of Love Has No Age Limit and page 45 and 46 of Feeling Outnumbered. So to answer the question, there is a book about this. There is some information in these books as well available. So there you go. We've got a great question coming in from His Works. Are the books that we buy and donate to shelters also tax deductible?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously it has to be the shelter. The shelter has to be a 501c3 or, so you do have to check, but almost all shelters that I know of are in that category. So absolutely. I'm going to be doing the same thing. So yeah, absolutely. You need to check with your individual shelter, but I would be surprised if it wasn't.
We've got a couple more questions coming in. I'm going to put up. Leanne says, longtime big fan, have a question about a dog I've rescued 2 years ago. Sure. Dog is usually happily gated in one room when alone as part of his routine. Last week, he suddenly started getting very distressed at being left alone. Do you have any idea what could cause this change?
Well, that's an 1.5 hour long consult. But it's a really good question. They're just so, there's so many possibilities, right? Something scared him. He's older and he feels more vulnerable. One of the things I think is easy to forget is as our dogs get older and older, it's easy for them to start feeling more vulnerable. I'm 77 and I feel a lot, I'm going to tell you, I physically feel a lot more vulnerable. I just do. And for good reason, because we are. So, how old is the dog? Is there something else going on? Was there a noise? Did something happen? I mean, I think what I would probably do is, if you can let the dog be left in other places, the house, if it's safe, right? I would go to that, and then I would start trying to ease my way back into the room. Start feeding them there, start hanging out there and petting them. I've introduced dogs into a new place by, I just sit down on the floor in something comfy and I just read. And so we just sit there, and maybe they're on the other side of the room, or maybe they're cuddled up with me, but I'm putting my scent on it. I'm saying, this is the place that I live. this is not just a place where we put you away. This is a place where we live together. This is part of our den. So I would see if that helps. Never hurts, except for your pocketbook, to have a vet check things out. I mean, I think everybody out there, I know Karen and I have talked about this a lot. We see dogs that even if their veterinarian said, like, no, there's nothing wrong with them, we're like, is that dog in pain? I don't know. Pain is really tricky because dogs don't often show it. And, even I've had several clients or just friends who are like, oh, I know he's not in pain because look at him chase his Frisbee. Well, that's dopamine and adrenaline. I actually said to clients at one point, I was sure their dog, every time he reached for his neck, he'd be like, and he was super friendly dog before that. And I said, could there be something wrong with his neck? And they're like, no, he's fine. When he goes outside, he chases his ball. And I said, so do you think there's anything wrong with my neck? And they were like, well, no. And I was like, actually, I'm in horrible pain right now. And I am really in a great deal of pain, but you don't know that, do you? So that's always something else to think about. So that's a hard one because there are just so many factors, but you just have to write them down and then go through them one at a time. That's the best thing to do.
I also very much recommend, and I know Karen does as well, and most trainers and behaviorists will tell you, get a vet check, get a full vet check. If you really trust your instincts, like you said, Trisha, well, I don't know, pain might be at play. It's often the cause of what's going on. And something sudden like that, and of course, without all the context in an hour and a half long consult, it would be difficult to talk about. I do have a question. Is the book that you wrote about treating and preventing separation anxiety, could this be a good resource for that question for someone who's maybe trying to help their dog to be more comfortable?
Yeah, good idea. But it might be, and again, I think what I would do is test, well, what happens if you leave him in another part of the house where it's safe and it's okay, and you leave him for just 2 minutes, So, maybe for some reason he's developed some kind of separation anxiety. Something happened. There was a noise. I know Karen and I both had clients the house of the dog where they lived suddenly became under a flight zone for the airport or for some little tiny private airport. All of a sudden at 3:00 in the afternoon, there were planes, growling at the dogs right overhead. And that never happened before. That was really bad separation case that I had, that it took forever. It's like, oh, it's the planes. It's not separation, right? It's like, I'm afraid here. So it's definitely something to think about. The question is why now? But if you do have a dog who sort of develops for whatever reason, counter conditioning and desensitization is very, very, very effective. And I know, there's a lot of work that's been done on separation anxiety since that booklet was written. There's really interesting discussions and conversations about, should you just desensitize or should you also use counter conditioning? Something that would be a great conversation I would love to have, because I would argue each has pluses and minuses. Anyway, but yes, it would definitely be a good resource.
Well, I'm just going to make a little note. We want to have that discussion. We should get Melanie DeMartini, who wrote the other book on separation anxiety. It's a bit thicker of a book. This one's a little bit more for pet pros, whereas I think this one is much easier to put into the hands of clients or, people who are just
hold that other book up, because it's really good. It's really, really good. It's definitely, if you want a step-by-step, anyway,
really great resource. This one's also available on Audible, and Milena and I have been talking about getting together for an interview. So maybe we need to making a little note. That might be one of the next things we do. So speaking of that book, the I'll Be Home Soon. Who was this book written for? When you put this book together, what was your goal for this book?
Well, this is a pretty common problem. And in some ways, it's not surprising if you think about it. We're talking about pack animals, right? Who normally would live in a kind of a family setting. Although, of course, there's street dogs who have a whole different sort of sociology, right? But we had a lot of clients whose dogs had really serious separation anxiety, and it's one of the things that I found in my experience. It's highly treatable, but you really have to know what you're doing, and it could take time. Sometimes it could take up to sort of 2 seasons, or say you have a dog who's like thunderphobic. Sometimes it can take 2 seasons to help a dog with that. And separation anxiety can take time to get turned around. So we would meet with clients and go through everything. But I learned early on, people cannot retain everything you say. They just can't. They cannot retain everything you say in a consult. They just can't. And so I would meet with them and I would talk about the process of how you very gradually, slowly desensitize and counter condition. But then I could give them this booklet. So it was for individuals who have this problem. I think it's best to work with a professional, frankly, but it's for professionals to hand out to, like, here's something sort of back up what we're talking about. Here's sort of the basic principles, here's where it describes how you have to start so early in the process. Like, you have to figure out the first trigger. Is it getting your keys? One client, the trigger was like, she went into the mirror and like fixed her hair. And that was the trigger. Skips, they learn these associations so fast. Skip has eye disease, and I have to give him ointment into his eyes every day. And it's not a drop, it's an ointment. So it's a thing. And I taught him to put his head, I go into our bathroom, I sit on the toilet, and I taught him to put his head down, on my knees. And then he gets lots of treats. And so every time I go to the bathroom now, he's like, is he coming? So dogs are, what else are they going to do, right? But learn these associations between X and Y. And so the most important thing, I think, in separation anxiety is figure out what the first triggers are and start working on those. So I would have people just counter condition, and other people would have them desensitize. I'm just going to the bathroom to brush my hair. I'm getting my coat. I'm picking up the keys. And so you could spend a week just on picking up the keys. But what's most important, and I emphasize this in the book a lot, is what's most important is to get the first foundation solid. And you might spend a week on picking up the keys, and you might spend 2 weeks on walking to the door. You might spend another 2 weeks on just opening the door and going outside. But if you build the right foundation, you can go from 1 minute away to 5 minutes away to 30 minutes away to 45 minutes away to an hour away really fast if you have the right foundation. It really does take patience and stamina. but yeah, I think a lot of professionals have purchased it to give to their clients, but I think a lot of individuals, especially when you first start seeing it happen, that's when it's like, I'm going to jump on this right away.
I really liked what you said about, like, we can tell our clients all day long until we're blue in the face, but they're not going to remember it. Or like sometimes when you read a book and then you come back to the book later, you're like, was this here the whole time? I didn't see this before. And again, something about these little booklets is, instead of, how many of us who are professional dog trainers spend hours per week typing up homework emails of like, okay, we had the lesson, we did the session together. Now here's all the things that we talked about to remind you of what it is so that you can then reference it. And then also, how many of our clients don't read those emails? I don't know. It's a whole thing, right? But if I could just say like, hey, here is the steps that we went through. Here you go. Put it in their hands and just say, read this. That's your homework. And if you don't read it, that's okay. But if you need to be able to come back and reference this in between sessions, this is a good little tiny booklet for you. Again, not a difficult read, easy to go through. I want to share we've got some success stories people are sharing with us in the comments when we were talking about having helper dogs or having other dogs that have been a part of their family.
Hey, Rebecca, look at the dog.
Rebecca says, I've adopted 2 dogs retired from research. One has become my helper dog for clients and a hiking buddy. My other dog was helped by a roommate's Labrador. So really speaking to what you were saying earlier, Tricia, about how helpful it can be for another dog to have a dog model for them. And Joyce said, working with a foster, came in at 5 months, totally terrified, exhibits learned helplessness. My helper dog just stood by her, doing nothing that I could see. She's now like a totally normal dog with him.
With him there. Yeah, I love it. I know.
Amazing.
I love it.
Absolutely.
So, I think there were a few questions that you mentioned early on that I haven't seen yet. Do we have some questions sitting out there?
Yeah, we had people who actually did, and I do want to reward that behavior. I want to reinforce it. We had people who submitted some questions ahead of time. So I'm going to put those up on the screen. Mallory asked on our Facebook page, what is a small daily habit that drastically improves a dog's behavior?
That, I just saw this question just right before we came on. And I was like, but I have to ask a question back. What aspect of a dog's behavior, what do you mean improves a dog's behavior? In what way, right? In that it doesn't jump up, or that it listens to you, or that it's good with other dogs. So that's a really hard question to answer if I don't know what behavior you're thinking about. I think I'm going to go back to what I said before, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'll tell you, if you get a bunch of top trainers and behaviorists sitting around and at lunch, a couple of glasses of wine or something, and somebody says, like, what is the one thing you wish people knew? Dog lovers, dog owners who aren't sort of in the dog world. What is the one thing you wish they knew? And almost to a person, we're like, we want them to learn to read dogs better. That's what they need to do. So I would say the habit is not your dog. The habit is learning to pay really close attention to your dog. Really, really close attention. And I have a tiny example. So 2 border collies, our dogs, they get a Kong stuffed with frozen food after our dinner. It's like their dessert after our dinner. And so Skip is lying with his Kong, and normally he's like chomping away, and he chomp, and then he'd look at me, and then he'd chomp, and then and it was like just this. It was just this. It was just this. And I said, Skip, what's going on? And because I did that, he crawled up on the couch, he put his head right here. And I was like, babe, what's going on with you? And I started petting him. He had this massive, massive burr stuck to his belly that was so stuck that it was pulling the hairs at his belly. I had just helped a friend with her sheep, and they had gotten out, and they were going to get on the road, and I sent Skip to save the day, and he ended up in a ton of burrs. And I thought, I found the ones that were obvious anyway, but only because he was like, what, so in every possible way. And I'm sure there's things I've missed, right? Because I'm human. But honestly, if we could change our habits of being better at paying attention to our dogs, then I think their behavior would be a lot better.
So I have a question for you, Tricia, because I wholeheartedly agree. I think if more people could read dog body language better, it would just be great. Like, that's my life goal, is like, how can I get more people to know more about dog body language? So as someone who reads a lot of books, do you have any favorite books or resources that you recommend to people?
Oh, no, now you're asking me that, and now I want to leave and walk over to my library over there. Please help me, because I'm 77 and my brain is not very good.
I cheated and I took myself off screen, and I got all the books before I asked this question. So if you want to walk off screen, I'll tell everyone what my favorite books are, because I have Lily Chin's Doggy Language.
I love Lily Chin.
An incredible book, and it's very affordable, but it also is so good for even kids. Like, there's a lot. Yeah, go find your books, Tricia. This book has an incredible resources, great illustrations, all sorts of things where you could put this book into the hands of anyone of any age, and they would be able to get something out of this book. So I do highly recommend Lily Chin's Doggy Language. And then this book, again, I really think if every person read this book, especially what we see on social media, we would see a lot less stress in dogs on videos and on social media and out in public. This is Turid Rugas on Talking Terms with Dogs, Calming Signals. I did an interview, a live interview like this with Turid Rugas a couple of weeks ago. You can watch the live replay on our YouTube channel, but this is one of our best-selling books at Dogwise. It came out almost 30 years ago, and it sells out all the time. We do sales on it all the time. We're doing a warehouse clearance sale right now. Go get a bunch of copies of this book. Give this book to your clients. Again, it's little, it's tiny. And then I have one book. I bet this one's not on your shelf. It is a brick. This book.
That's the one I'm looking at.
Oh, well, great.
That was what I was looking for. Yay for you.
This book came out several years ago. It is expensive. It is an investment. It is incredible. It is incredible. This book is a full color. I've never seen a book like this before. It's full color, glossy pages. It's beautiful. I love selling this book at conferences because I'm able to pull it open and be like, hey, look at this page.
Right.
Instead of using videos, they used split-second photography. And can you see like the lines of how this dog's body weight is shifted? I mean, the details in this book are amazing. I'm
so glad you pulled it because that's what I was looking for and I couldn't remember the name of it.
I found it.
Astounding piece of work.
Yeah. So these are my top picks for dog books and resources for people, and kind of all different levels, right? Like this is an investment. This is a hefty, the Bible of probably body language. And then Lily Chin's book, of course, and On Talking Terms are just great resources for anyone. This book has, of course, pictures. They should have lots of pictures, but it's so easy to be able to flip through this or put this in the hands of a client and say, here, get a little bit better at observational skills, because I do think that that's something that can make a huge difference for people.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in. Good work.
Yeah, of course. I always just have the books on the ready. I've got a question that you did address a little bit earlier, but I want to, again, put it up on screen and share it because I wanted to let everyone know. Again, we shared on social media to let as many people know about this event as possible, and then opened up questions and asked, if you had to ask Patricia McConnell one question, what would it be? And we got some good responses on our Facebook page. We got no responses on our Instagram page until this morning. And I want to address this question. I know this question from Wildman Jake, you did already talk a little bit about treating phobias and noise phobia. So if you wanted to say anything else about that before I jump to our question that came from Instagram.
No, I'll just quickly jump in and just say that, here in the Midwest, there's just a lot of thunderstorms and it's a huge issue. I actually, Skip, who's 9 years old, just developed thunder phobia. We had 4 tornado warning, massive thunderstorms, 4 different storms in 12 hours. And he was fine until, he's 9 years old. He's always been fine until the last one. I was like, oh, poo. Oh, poo. Here it goes. So it's a really big deal in certain areas of the country. And it is not, the methods in general that I talk about with Cautious Canine, it's basically, I use counter conditioning. I also have them talk to their vets, their thunder shirts that help some dogs, not others. There's medication, talk to your veterinarian, and certified applied veterinary behaviorist, for example. But I have had a lot of luck with clients and with my own dogs, and I've had several with it, using classical counter conditioning. And again, you have to start really small. So you get a barometer, for example, the barometer starts to go down. I just teach them, I condition them to associate thunder with usually chicken. And so like at 3 o'clock in the morning, not that long ago, I was awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, hearing the first thunder and said, oh, thunder treats. Oh boy, it's thundering. Let's go get the chicken. So we ran downstairs and I'm cursing myself crazy because I don't want to be running down the stairs at 3 in the morning. And I'm like, thunder treats, yay, that's so cool. And then I stocked my closet right after that. So I found it, it's absolutely fixable with almost all dogs, but you have to do it, if it's thunder, for example, you have to do it for 2 seasons. There's some research that was done on it, and you have to do it through 2 thunder seasons. Anyway, so I've used classical counter conditioning very successfully with my dogs and clients' dogs. So Good luck with it. It's not fun because thunder happens, at 3 a.m.
I didn't think about that, about needing to do it for multiple seasons. I've heard, people who like get a puppy for Christmas and then the dog sees snow when they're a puppy and so they don't have a problem, but they really have a problem with fireworks for 4th of July, or someone gets a
Right.
puppy in the summer and the dog doesn't see
Yeah.
snow or rain until it's tricky to play with that. Absolutely. I'm going to share one more question that we got ahead of time, because again, I want to encourage everyone who is tuning in to follow us on social media so you don't miss opportunities like this in the future. So this question came from one of our Instagram followers. I've read her blog on getting a new dog. Any tips to set up the current dog and the new dog up for success? I know we talked.
Well, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but like, here it is. This is, I mean, yeah, this addresses that because it's such a huge issue. And, as I mentioned earlier, it's like being a good observer, being really patient, not forcing dogs into these head-to-head greetings, which is what we so often tend to do, not putting them on tight leashes, not putting them in pressure-filled situations, giving them a lot of agency, giving them a lot of ability to make their own choices. So one thing I will do is I mentioned parallel walking. Dogs are both on a leash, but they're very far away from each other and they're walking back and forth. Depending on how things go, I will often say, you know what? Let's let that dog off the leash. Let's let that dog off the leash, and then watch carefully to see what happens. And I usually want to let the dog who is the most nervous dog off the leash first, because they have agency. They are not trapped by a leash, right? So that's the most important thing, is to give them choices. Let them greet each other on their own time. Not, we tend to be very impatient primates. Let dogs meet each other at their own time and space. Maybe they never actually even get close to each other for 3, 4, 5 days or so, just depending on how it's going, right? But give them freedom. Don't stare at them and stand over them, looking like a stressed out dog, not breathing. Do a lot of walking, do a lot of, like, you get to, you pee there and then you get to sniff that pee. Do a lot of that. I use gates with clients and with my own dogs, just because houses are much different than it is outside. So that's my sort of in a nutshell answer to that. Because I think it's, that first greeting, those first days are so important. So
Agreed.
important. Yeah.
We had a couple of people who were commenting some other books that they recommend as well.
Barbara's book, it's so good. Yes.
It's Karen. Karen said that. Sorry, I didn't even look at who her name was.
Thank you, Karen.
Yes, thank you, Karen. So I just wanted to let you know, yes, Canine Behavior, a photo illustrated handbook by Barbara Handelman is available at Dogwise, and it is currently drastically on sale. We have a couple of these body language books that are drastically on sale at Dogwise right now. So I would recommend checking those out, going to our website and seeing what options are there that you might be able to take advantage of. Dog Language, an encyclopedia of canine behavior, is another one that's also available and on sale. And then I think that I saw another comment where someone was recommending, let me see if I can find it. It is the Brenda Aloff book. So that is one that is also available on sale. It's one that a lot of people are like, oh, dog professionals should have this book on their shelf for sure, because it is such a great resource.
And then there's YouTube.
Then there's YouTube. That's right. Yeah. So this is, again, these prices are accurate. These are books that we have been putting on sale lately. We've got lots of stock that we want to, again, get into the hands of people. So whoever I'm so sorry, I can't find the comment. We've got here it is. It is Tessie 6886 said Brenda Aloff has some good body language, lots of photos. Yeah. And I will say, like you said, yes, YouTube is a great resource as well to let people see. And then on Talking Terms, there is a streaming video. There are some resources, some streaming videos available at Dogwise as well. So those are really good resources.
And if it's okay, I just want to jump in. One of the things that people probably don't know is that one, all the good work of Dogwise is not going anywhere, right? They are not going anywhere for us. They will be there for us. But they're moving in a way. So the reason all these books are on sale is they're these printed books in a warehouse, and they have to get moved out of this warehouse. So other things happen, right? So that's why, I mean, this is like the best news for anybody who wants to buy a book, because because of the physical logistics of it, a lot of these books, it's just very expensive to move printed books from one place to another, right? So anyway, so this is a time to jump in. If you ever wanted to jump in, this is the time to do it.
Yes, it definitely is. Like I said, I sent out an email last week. Dogwise is doing a warehouse clearance sale.
Right.
All of the Dogwise books are 40% off, everything from Dogwise Publishing. We do sell books that are not from Dogwise Publishing. So Dogs in Translation is one of them. We had a few people asking in the comments that it's out of stock. We will probably be getting more stock in. Stay tuned, but we are still in the process of trying to get a lot of these huge quantities of books out of our warehouse, which is why they're on sale and why we're passing those savings on to our viewers. But people who are looking for books, please, if you have questions, send us an email, send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. Be happy to help direct you in the direction of what book you're looking for. We have got a question that just came in that I think is really interesting. Not sure if you'll have time to get to this question, but how would you use counter conditioning on a dog that's overly excited rather than fearful? For example, seeing other dogs on a walk.
I don't know if I'd use counter conditioning for that. I think I would figure out the behavior I want. And I mean, it is a kind of a counter conditioning, but basically what you're going to be doing is you figure out what you want the dog to do, right? So like when Willie was aggressive to other dogs, rah, 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 what I wanted to do was just look at me. I didn't want him to stop doing something. I wanted him to do something else, right? When somebody comes to the door, I don't want my dogs to jump up on them. I want to keep them four on the floor. So decide what you do want your dogs to do, and then start using positive reinforcement to reinforce that. And the trick with that is it's similar to counter conditioning, and this is a tiny step by step by step by step. So I would say you want your dog just to look to you, right? Or to look at the other dog calmly. So the first thing I would do is I would set up a situation where there's another dog. You said overly excited, so I guess I was assuming he was overly excited about other dogs. Oh, I wish I could talk to Med 123-ish. What is a dog so excited about? But I would think about in each context, well, what do I want my dog to do now? And then when it was not super stimulated, when it was easy for it to be right, I would use the best possible reinforcement I could find, and I would reinforce that. And I would probably put it on cue. So if it's, and then I would gradually make it a slightly more demanding context, a little harder for the dog to stay chill. And I would always be working, and what's that magic of like, you get sort of like 80%, right? Getting the correct behavior that you want, then you can start pushing things a little bit, but I would slowly push it. But also, if I have a dog that's just sort of always overly excited, I really want to look at what they're eating. I have had and I'm not a veterinarian, I'm not a nutritionist, but I've had so many dogs, Karen and I used to see clients together. I have had so many dogs who were just, they'd come into the office and they were just, blah, blah, blah. And the client was like, oh, they're just always so enthusiastic. And I was like, they're not enthusiastic. They're like hysterical. They're like not happy ramped up. They're like super ramped up. And one of the things we found is sometimes you just change the food they're eating. Maybe they have a food allergy, or maybe they just react to chicken differently than they do beef. So that's one thing I would do. And I would teach a really happy lie down and stay, right? Just really happy. If you just lie down and stay for just 1 second, good things happen, right? And it wouldn't be like, good dog, good dog. It would be like, good boy, here's some chicken. boy. So I would spend a lot of time training using positive reinforcement, the behavior I wanted, but I was also thinking about what's going on physiologically with that dog. So another consult. We need an hour and a half.
I wish. The follow-up there was,
Oh,
you said you wished you could talk to Med123-ish. She pulls and looks happy. She wants to play regardless of the other dog's energy.
so you know the context. So that's great. And that's really common. That's a high quality. I love that problem, right? Like people say, my dog jumps up at you. I'm so sorry. It's like, they don't have their teeth in my thigh. I'm totally happy. I'm good with that. So you know the context, you know what you want, totally fixable. Absolutely.
Excellent. I did want to share this. Noble Wolf has a free dog body language course, just FYI. So another resource for people if you want to look up Noble Wolf.
These things are so valuable because, you know, everybody out there has so many great resources. I don't know Noble Wolf's work, and now I'm going to have to learn.
We're going to have to look it up.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up. Mallory had asked the question online ahead of time. And we said, what is the behavior you're looking for? And she's watching live. So Mallory said, the most unwanted behavior is my dog playing with my kids like they're puppies. So it sounds like the dog's being a little bit too rough with the puppies. So that was some context for you.
Too rough with the kids, right?
Yeah.
With the kids. And so I would love a video. How are the kids being with the dog?
Great question.
You know, I mean, I'm sorry, but I just keep going back to the human's role in this. You know, I don't know how old the kids are, but some kids, I mean, if they're 3, there's just a limited amount of impulse control they have, right? So it would depend on what, I mean, if you were my client, a lot would depend on how old are the kids, how much impulse control do they have, you know, what can they understand? And sort of go from there, because an awful lot, so many of the children I've seen, they're hyping the dog up, you know, unintentionally, right? They're just playing, right? They're just being humans and playing. I would think a lot about if one of the things that's happening that happens really commonly is dogs start getting nippy, they get really excited and they get nippy. So I would teach a lot of bite inhibition, soft mouth, away from the kids. That totally depends on the dog. Some dogs would just not even hear you and pay no attention, but there are also sound sensitive dogs out there. Not that I have border collies or anything, but there are plenty of sound sensitive breeds of dogs out there, individual dogs out there, who if you go, ah! And you didn't get hurt, but you were afraid the kid might have, they're like, you get a startle response and they're like, what? Because that's a species specific salient signal, a yelp, right? That's a great way for dogs to stop rough play between other dogs. So sometimes you can try that if the dog gets nippy, for example, with the kids. But if you're not a trainer, then I would think about getting some videos and sending it, and just getting somebody to help you evaluate, like who's getting who excited, right? And sort of where's the point where we can intervene and teach different behaviors.
Fantastic. And yes, especially in this day and age, it's so easy to get video, and there's so many trainers. I was just talking to a trainer last week who only does online for her dog training. And she said, it's so much less stressful for the dog. I don't need to be there and add myself into the mix. I can just coach my clients online. And I was like, oh, tell me more, because that's a growth edge for me. I'm not very good at online training. I want to be there in person and just hand me the leash and I'll fix it, right? But it is so easy now to find really great ethical trainers who will be able to help you just with video online. So wonderful suggestion. There was a question earlier. I can't find it, but I do like this question because I definitely don't want to end without talking about this book. Russia Vision 7032 says, the number one question we encounter is, why doesn't my dog like other dogs? And the first step before meeting with the client is read Feisty Fido, and then we'll meet. And this made me think of, I scrolled back up for this question because when we were talking a few minutes ago with the other question of my dog is so excited to meet other dogs. This is a book that I read very early on in my career when I was working with reactivity, and I love working with reactivity clients. It's my favorite. I love watching them be like, oh, we can really change this behavior and everyone's going to enjoy walks more. Yeah. But even thinking about a feisty fighter who might be over aroused or overexcited or more playful, is this a good resource for them, Tricia?
Yeah, it is, because, dogs can be problematic when they see another dog for so many different reasons. And it sort of gets back to me to a very clear sort of behavioral perspectives, like, what do you want the dog to do? So, the dog could be snarling and growling and barking at another dog. The dog could freeze, like, oh, or the dog could be like, let me at him, I want to play. None of those behaviors you want. And again, the question is, what behavior do you want? And so that's what Feisty Fido is about. I use this to help turn Willie around, who was my very feisty through nerves, right? He's clearly afraid of other dogs. So yeah, it's, getting that perspective, and everybody out there who's a professional trainer gets this in spades, is like, we tend, understandably, as humans, to think about, what is my dog doing that I want it to stop doing? Rather than what you need to be doing, which is, well, what do I do? What do I want my dog to do? What behavior do I want my dog to do? Because that's the key to getting it turned around. The key is, I'm going to use positive reinforcement and an understanding of being a good observer, understanding of how to work slowly, step by step, into more and more challenging situations. Start easy, make it a little harder, a little harder, a little harder. What do I want my dog to do? And first I'm going to teach that with no distractions, and then I'm going to work my way up. And it's just unbelievably powerful. So yeah, so the book is written for anybody whose dog does not react the way you would like them to when they see another dog. So, and I should add that in this country, we are constantly setting dogs up to have problems seeing other dogs. They're on sidewalks, which are very narrow, and they're on leashes. And, a lot of you, I'm sure, have been to the UK, you've been to Europe, and it's like, why are everybody's dogs so more polite here? Well, because they don't have little narrow sidewalks and dogs on leashes that are constantly being set up to be like the worst possible way two dogs would greet each other, right? So I personally, it's not science, it's just speculation, but I think that's part of it. And the more we can learn to counter that, the better off we'll be.
Years ago, I think we've created leash reactivity. Like, I think all the time about, my dog, not that this is a good idea, but I think he would have been really happy in the 50s when people just didn't have fences and their dogs just roamed around, and like Lady and the Tramp style, he'd just go up and down. I'm sure he'd come home for meals. I bet he'd be so happy. I think about that when I take him on walks through our little mid-century house neighborhood of like, this dog was born 70 years too late. Like, he just, because on a leash, it's no fun. He can't go fast. He can't run. He can't chase the squirrel.
He has no freedom. He's trapped. And everybody who knows anything about fear knows that if you are trapped and you don't have control and you have no choices, then everything gets worse, right? And fear can turn into aggression just like that. I mean, the amygdala, fear on one side, aggression on the other, and they could toggle back and forth just like that, right? Ask any body in law enforcement, right? Who are you most afraid of? The people who are really scared, right? Yeah. Because you can't predict what they're going to do. Anyway, so yeah, we are setting dogs up, and so we just need to learn to counter that, as much as we can. And I would also quickly say, yes, dogs need exercise. Yes, they need variety in their world. But you know what? There are ways to do that without taking them on a walk in a busy neighborhood where they're going to encounter dogs that sort of set them off. You have a big backyard, you can drive your dog somewhere, and take them on a leash or off a leash somewhere where it's safe, right? You can teach them tricks. You have a bunch of great trick books at Dogwise people can check out right now. That's great mental exercise. A lot of people who get dogs who have been from abusive situations.
This is a great book. I'm going to interrupt you. This is a book that we did not publish, but we do sell. And I say that, I know people are like, you're sold out of this one, you're sold out of that one. That's because they're popular books. They're really great. Wonderful, wonderful examples of great enrichment ideas. But then I also tell everyone that I can, if you have not read or listened to the audiobook version of Canine Enrichment for the Real World, do yourself a favor and go get that book as fast as you can.
Great.
Because that, like I tell people all the time, Canine Enrichment for the Real World is not how to stuff a Kong. It's how to meet your dog's needs. And it's not just about physical needs, and it's not even just about mental exercise. It's about all of their needs. And we find that when you meet all of your dog's needs, a lot of the behavior problems go away. It's amazing. So there's so many resources out there. Trisha, I'm watching the time and I know we're over. We're having such a fantastic time that I don't want to stop talking. But I have a couple of other things I wanted to ask really quickly. I want to make sure we've been talking about dog books this whole time, but we have a book that was written for cats.
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about the Fastidious Feline and why people should buy it and how that can help, again, adoptable animals?
Yeah, and I have to tell you, if you want to help shelters and you want to help kitties, this is the book to do it, because the research is absolutely solid. The most common reason the most common reason cats get sent to shelters is because of litter box problems. The most common reason cats are euthanized or killed for behavioral problems are litter box problems. And it is not rocket science. It's not. But it's not intuitive either. You have to learn to think like a cat. It's a tiny, tiny little booklet. But I'm really proud of it. Shelters have given this out. So many of the shelters around us, there's a lot of dogs there, yes, but there are tons of cats also, especially depending on the time of year. But this is a tiny booklet. It's very inexpensive. It's on ridiculous sale right now. If you want to donate something to a shelter, this is another fabulous book to do it, because it has such a big impact on keeping cats in their homes and keeping them from being euthanized.
Absolutely. And again, go to dogwise.com. This booklet is $1 right now. It's $1. Right. It's so easy to buy. And if you buy more than, I think is it 25 or 50 copies? You'll have to look. But if you buy more than, I think it's 25 copies, they're like 50 cents a piece. So it's so easy to help cats. Like, go buy 100 copies of this book for $50, free shipping. We will send it tax deductible. Tell us where to send it. We'll send it directly to the shelter. We would be so happy to do that, to get this book in the hands of adopters, because that's really our mission, is trying to help more people help their pets. So easy to read, wonderful resource. If you're in community outreach, or you work at a shelter, or you volunteer with a rescue, this book is going to be such a great resource. Absolutely. Trisha, we're nearly out of time. We've talked about so many of your books, but we had someone at the very beginning say, sorry, I'm late. Had a client, but just finished reading Away to Me and loved it, especially the accurate descriptions of body language and behavior. Nerd happiness.
Thank
Stevie,
you.
You and I are in the same boat. I'm hoping that we can do this book as our book club choice this summer. It's such a great, fun read. And I had the honor of doing an interview with Trisha a couple months ago, right before the book came out. We've talked about a lot of heavy behavior stuff, but if you guys just want a fun, great read, go get your hands on a copy of Away to Me. It is available on Dogwise and on patriciamcconnell.com. So just wanted to give a shout out to your novel.
Thank you. Yeah.
For bringing that book into the world. The last thing I want to close with before we stop our conversation today is that we, like I said, are letting people enter to win an autographed copy of The Other End of the Leash. Anyone who orders more than 10 copies of the book from dogwise.com or from patriciamcconnell.com, it goes to the same warehouse. Dogwise and Patricia McConnell's books are all in the same place. Right. So if you go and order more than 10 copies today, well, let's extend it through the weekend. We'll pick our winner on Monday. So anyone who's watching this or watching the replay, I know there's lots of people who weren't able to join live, but we want to make sure that you know that if you buy more than 10 copies, go donate them to a shelter or give them out to your clients who've just adopted a dog, you're going to be entered to win this copy, this autographed copy of The Other End of the Leash. I will put up the slide at the end with the link to be able to order that directly from Dogwise. But before we close, I just want to say a huge, huge thank you to you, Trisha, for joining us today. And we are just so happy to be here and so happy for everyone who was able to join us. So thank you So
Oh, a huge thank you to you. Isn't she great? I mean, you're fabulous.
don't make me blush. We're live still.
No, I'm not, I'm not blowing smoke. I mean, you're just really good at what you do and you know so much and you're just a delight. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's really fun.
Thank you everyone for joining us. And again, please check out this book. It is on sale for just $5 at dogwise.com. And if you order more than 10 copies, you will be entered to win an autographed copy of The Other End of the Leash by Patricia McConnell. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.